Throughout world history, there have been many bitter rivalries between epic titans. Coke versus Pepsi, Marvel versus DC, McDonald's versus Burger King. All rivalries that made us fat and happy. But the one we care most about must be PlayStation versus Xbox. Because games are emotion. And since many gamers are invested in one console or the other from a young age, emotions run high sometimes.
Today's video is brought to you by NordVPN. Use the link in the description and save 75% on a 3-year plan. Switch to NordVPN to protect yourself today.
Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that bell. And don't get your panties in a bunch as we explore the forever console war. Video game history has gone through many phases. It started out strong in the 70s and early 80s with a real golden age. Then there was the video game crash of 1983, from which emerged Nintendo, that grew to control most of the industry by the early 90s. But they always felt the heat from Sega in a worldwide console war that we will save for another video. As the Super NES and Genesis lived out their lifespan, they needed to take the next step. And both Sega and Nintendo thought CD-based consoles with a focus on 3D graphics were the future. Nintendo teamed up with Sony to develop a CD-based system, and Sega introduced the Saturn. But the Saturn proved to be too difficult to develop for, and that had a negative effect on the library. And Nintendo's deal with Sony fell through, which led them to make yet another console that used cartridges, the N64. And it led Sony to create the PlayStation, pretty much out of spite. The original PlayStation was a sleek and simple console that was cheap, easy to develop for, and featured real voiceovers because of its CD format, which was rare on the N64. The PlayStation has sold more than 100 million units during its lifespan. While the PlayStation was dominating the console market, some of the biggest names in the industry were plotting against it. Microsoft CEO Bill Gates caught wind of the upcoming PlayStation 2, which was supposed to become the multimedia machine that was going to replace several home entertainment appliances. People were going to file their taxes on that thing, man. In '98, 4 engineers from Microsoft's DirectX team were brought together to come up with the console that would rival the PlayStation 2. The project was called Project Midway, after the World War II battle that proved the downfall of the Japanese Navy. Video games ain't no joke. The new console would be assembled from existing PC parts, including a hard disk that would make it cheaper to build, give it greater capacity than the competition, but it would also make it the size of a freaking church. As for a name, Windows Entertainment Project was considered, but would you want to say you had a good session on your web? In the end, they settled for Xbox, because of the DirectX technology it used. That's how the rivalry started. So, how did they stack up through the generations? East versus West, or man against man? Xbox hit the ground running in 2001. Being released a year after the PS2 and with a clear plan to defeat the PS2, Microsoft brought a lot of firepower. And the Xbox had a much stronger processor and graphics card than the PS2. The Xbox was also launched with an internal hard drive to save games and even music. But on the other hand, the PS2 was also a DVD player, something the Xbox would need an adapter for, and the GameCube couldn't do at all. Add to that the more extensive content library of the PS2 that was strengthened by its backward compatibility, which made all PS1 games playable too. Which left the Xbox with a pretty small selection of games in comparison, for a more expensive console. The Xbox's release titles, even though they sold huge numbers like Halo, could not compete with the PlayStation's already established series in popularity. And Sony didn't cut Microsoft any slack by securing temporary platform exclusivity on titles as Grand Theft Auto and Metal Gear Solid, which turned out to be games for the ages. The Xbox had a rough start compared to the PS2, with higher prices, less games, and being the new kid on the block, and was outsold 24 million to 155. The introduction of the 7th generation of consoles in 2005 and 6 was the start of the second clash. But this time, experienced warrior Nintendo was also involved. The 7th generation of consoles stepped their game up, all having their own try at wireless controllers, motion tracking and backward compatibility. Online services were now also expected as standard, and many games depended on elaborate multiplayer possibilities. Where the low price was one of the great features of the original PlayStation, the PS3 was the most expensive 7th generation console at its launch, with a whopping $499. The Xbox 360 kept it more reasonable, with $299 for the base model. But both of them got undercut by Nintendo, who sold the revolutionary Wii for only $249. And at the end of its lifetime, a new Wii would only set you back $199. All three parties tried their hand at motion controls and tracking. Most notably, the PlayStation 6-axis controllers and the Xbox Kinect. Even though the Kinect gameplay is plagued by cringe moments, it extended the lifespan of the 360 significantly. But the Wii was the only one to get their motion controls on point. Once again, Nintendo showed the gaming world how it's done, by focusing on a simple concept and polishing that till it's perfect. The 360's reputation was tainted by the red ring of death, a ubiquitous failure caused by overheating of the console. But that didn't stop it from selling almost as well as the PS3, even with the relative impopularity of the 360 in Japan, whereas the PS3 sold really well in the US. The sales of the PS3 and 360 were neck and neck, with 87 against 84 million. But the little Wii kinda won this round, with over 101 million units sold. Where the Wii was the underdog winner of the 7th generation of consoles, its successor, the Wii U, was not such a hotshot. Nintendo cut its lifespan short and replaced it with the Switch, which consequently is the only 9th generation console. Until the PS4 and Xbox One successors are released. The reveal of the Xbox One was tainted by controversy, caused by their plans for an alternative game licensing scheme that prohibited the free sharing of games and required the console to be always online. After the initial backlash, Microsoft was quick to reverse these plans, earning their console the nickname Xbox 180. But PlayStation showed no mercy in capitalizing on the controversy.
This is how you share your games on PS4.
Thanks.
Microsoft also goofed on the pricing. By bundling the console with the Kinect, the price of the package at release was $499, whereas the PS4 was only
$399.
At the time Microsoft had reversed their licensing plans and lowered the price, the PlayStation 4 was already the star of its generation, with greater backwards compatibility from the launch model and, you might not agree, more impactful exclusive titles. The PS4 sold more than double the Xbox number, with 96 to 41 million. At the time of making this video, PS5 and Xbox Scarlet have already been announced. Both consoles are announced to have optical drives for physical games. But we're wondering if this generation will also be the transition to cloud gaming, since it's likely that both systems will implement this to some extent. If this instance of the console war isn't decided by evil copyright schemes, manufacturing mistakes, or snatching exclusive titles, we might see Microsoft and Sony battle with Google's Project Stadia. And if so, this might be the final battle in the console war. Let's enjoy it. So, what are your thoughts on Sony and Microsoft's rivalry? Are you a warrior in one of the armies? Let us know in the comments what you think, and we would like to know if you would enjoy more of these kinds of videos in the future. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that bell. Thanks for watching.